Okay, so when you think about the Great Depression, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
Oh, definitely hardship. Images of, soup kitchens, those long bread lines, unemployment just skyrocketing.
Exactly. It's this picture of just overwhelming despair, isn't it? And yeah, it was America's absolute worst economic downturn. Massive hardship, loss for so many people. But what if I told you that even during that incredibly bleak time, there were actually a few people who didn't just survive, they made fortunes.
It sounds almost, unbelievable.
Right.
Thriving when, what was it, unemployment over 20%?
Over 20%, yeah. And the whole country's GDP, the gross domestic product, it plummeted by 30% by 1933.
30%, wow. Just think about that, losing almost a third of the entire economy in just a few years. The jobs, the businesses, just gone. It was utterly devastating.
That context really hammers home how tough things were. And well, that's exactly what we're getting into today. Our mission for this deep dive is basically to pull out the most important nuggets of insight from this period. We're looking at, the smart investments, maybe some lucky timing, the vision, the sheer adaptability that let certain people really flourish.
When everyone else was sinking.
Precisely. And we're drawing all this from a really interesting article on history.com. It's called 6 People Who Made Big Money During the Great Depression.
Right. And it's worth pointing out, isn't it, that even before the absolute worst hit, some big players were already sort of positioning themselves or even expanding.
Yeah, that's a great point. It wasn't just about reacting to the crash for everyone. Who are we thinking of there? Those early folks defying the trend.
Well, take William Boeing, the aviation guy.
Boeing, right.
While the economy was tanking, aviation was actually taking off, literally. Regular passenger service started becoming a thing in the 1930s.
So he rode that wave.
He really did. He built this whole vertically integrated empire, making the planes and running the airline a real powerhouse.
Until the government stepped in, right?
Yeah.
Antitrust stuff.
Exactly. They forced him to break it up eventually. But for a while there, he was soaring.
And then there's Walter Chrysler. Automobiles. You'd think that industry would just hit a brick wall.
You would, wouldn't you? But Chrysler's response was, well, pretty remarkable. He adapted.
How so?
He didn't just panic.
Yeah.
He cut costs, but he also boosted efficiency, focused on making cars more comfortable, and crucially,
the cheaper models.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sales of expensive cars plunged, obviously, but his cheaper Plymouth brand, it just took off.
Wow.
His market share went from like 9% in 1929 up to 24% by 1933.
24% through the Depression?
Yeah. They actually overtook Ford. Became the number 2 car company in America. Think about that, growing massively in a shrinking market.
That's incredible. Real adaptability. Okay, so that sets the stage a bit. Some big players were already making moves. Now let's dive into those 6 specific people from the article. First up, Joseph Kennedy Sr.
Kennedy. Now he's interesting because he already had a lot of money before the crash, didn't he?
He did, made millions in the 20s stock market. The source mentions it was partly through things like insider trading, market manipulation. It was a bit of a Wild West back then.
But unregulated. But the really shrewd part, perhaps, was what he did just before everything collapsed.
Okay, so what was his big move? How did he navigate the crash itself?
Well, unlike most people, he actually thought Wall Street was way overvalued. So he sold off most of his stocks before the crash in '29.
Got out early.
And then he went even further. He started selling short.
Betting against the market, essentially.
Exactly, betting that prices would fall. So when they did, he actually made more money, came out of the crash richer than he went in.
That takes some serious nerve. Or foresight.
Or both. And he didn't just sit on that money, did he?
No, he diversified. Hollywood, right?
Yep. Used his Wall Street cash, bought a failing movie studio back in '26, consolidated a few companies, made them run better, sold them off, made, $5 million by 1931 doing that.
Wow. Stocks, movies, what else?
Booze. Well, legitimate booze post-Prohibition.
Okay.
As Prohibition was ending, he snagged these exclusive contracts to be the sole U.S. importer for big British brands. Think Dewar's Scotch, Gordon's Gin.
Lucrative timing.
Incredibly. So you combine all that, the short selling, the Hollywood deals, the liquor imports, his wealth just exploded from maybe $4 million in 1929 to something like $180 million by 1935.
$180 million. Astonishing. And the article notes that the bootlegging rumors about him, apparently not true, according to his biographer.
Like David Nasaw looked into it, found no evidence. These were, legitimate, albeit very shrewd business moves.
Okay, next on the list, J. Paul Getty, another huge name.
Getty. His philosophy was almost deceptively simple.
What was it?
Buy when everyone else is selling and hold on until everyone else is buying.
Okay, sounds easy enough on paper.
Right. But imagine the nerve it took during the Depression.
Absolutely. Panic is everywhere. Everyone's dumping assets and you're supposed to buy.
Exactly. Getty was already a millionaire, but he saw the 29 crash not as a disaster, but as, quote, the opportunity of a lifetime.
To buy what specifically?
Oil companies,
Yeah.
mainly. And real estate, stuff that was just getting hammered, undervalued. He said it was a chance to get them for practically nothing.
So he swooped in.
He did. Bought Pacific Western Oil Company, bought shares in Tidewater Associated Oil Company that was the 9th largest oil company then.
And did it pay off?
Hugely. Those Tidewater shares, he bought them for about $2.12. 5 years later, they were worth over $20.
Wow. That's conviction. Buying low and holding.
Textbook contrarian investing, really. Building an empire while others were just trying to survive.
All right, let's shift from finance to entertainment. Mae West.
Mae West. Now, this is interesting because surprisingly, the movie business actually did okay during the Depression.
Really? Why was that?
Well, people were desperate for cheap entertainment, escapism. And the new talkies, movies with sound, were a huge novelty.
Okay, makes sense. And Mae West was already established before movies.
Oh, yeah. Vaudeville, burlesque, Broadway. She even wrote her own plays. She didn't actually make her first movie until 1932 when she was 39.
And her timing was perfect for one studio in particular, wasn't it?
Paramount Studios. They were apparently right on the edge of bankruptcy. Signing Mae West was sort of a last-ditch effort.
And it worked.
Big time. Her 1933 film, She'd Done Him Wrong, which was based on her own play, Diamond Little basically saved the studio, turned their fortunes right around.
What was it about her that clicked so well?
Well, she played these really strong female characters, full of wit, grit, kind of sexually liberated for the time. It resonated. People loved it.
And she got paid incredibly well for it.
Oh, massively. By the mid-30s, she was earning $300,000 a movie, plus another $100,000 for the screenplay she wrote.
Making her
Hollywood's highest paid entertainer.
Yeah.
And the highest paid woman in the entire country at the time.
Incredible. Though her star faded a bit later, didn't it? Censors.
Yeah, the production code cracked down, things got stricter, and her style didn't fit as well later on. But for a while there, she was queen.
Okay, moving to a very different sphere, Charles Clinton Spaulding.
Spaulding's story is really powerful. He ran the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company.
Which was?
America's largest black-owned business at the time, founded way back in 1898.
And during the Depression, when African Americans were facing the absolute worst unemployment rates.
Right. He didn't just keep the company afloat. He expanded it, used his background in sales and marketing.
Expanded into what?
Fire insurance, banking, mortgages. Really grew the business. They went from just a rented desk to this big 6-story building in Durham, North Carolina. It anchored what they called Black Wall Street.
Wow. So a huge community impact.
Immense. He was seen as the leading black businessman in the country. He even advised FDR, President Roosevelt, on his unofficial black cabinet. A real symbol of resilience and progress, especially in the South.
It's a great example of finding and serving a need, isn't it? Especially when the mainstream wasn't.
Absolutely. Which actually brings us nicely to the next person. Michael Cullen, the supermarket guy.
Ah, right. Revolutionized grocery shopping. Before him, it was mostly small corner stores.
Yeah, where you'd go in and a clerk behind the counter would get everything for you.
Slow, probably more expensive.
Definitely. Cullen worked for Kroger, actually, and he had this idea.
The supermarket concept.
Exactly. Big self-service stores, huge selection, discount prices, parking lots for cars. He figured he could save shoppers, like $1 to $3 on their food bills, which was a lot back then.
But Kroger didn't bite?
Yep. Rejected the idea. Apparently thought he was crazy.
Huh. Wonder if they regretted that later.
You have to think so. But Cullen, he didn't give up. He went out on his own, opened King Cullen in Queens, New York in 1930.
And that's considered the first real supermarket?
According to the Food Industry Association, yep. And his advertising, the world's greatest price wrecker.
Perfect for the Depression era.
Absolutely perfect. People needed savings, convenience. The model just exploded.
How quickly did it grow?
By the time Cullen died in 1936, just 6 years later, he already had 15 King Cullen locations.
Wow. And the article mentions a connection to Fred Trump.
Yeah, a little historical footnote. Cullen actually bought a competing store from Donald Trump's father. Fred used that money for his real estate investments.
Interesting. And the overall impact on grocery shopping.
Huge. In 1932, there were maybe 300 supermarkets in the whole U.S. By 1939, 4,500.
4,500. That's incredible growth. And Publix started around the same time too, right? 1930.
That's right. Clearly, it was an idea whose time had come.
Okay, last one on the list, Howard Hughes.
Hughes, a fascinating eccentric figure.
And rich from a young age, right?
Very. Millionaire at 18. Inherited a fortune because his dad invented this revolutionary drill bit for the oil industry.
So he had a head start. What did he do with it during the Depression?
Well, first he actually made even more money in Hollywood. Produced movies.
Any big ones?
Oh, yeah. 10 Arabian Nights in 1927 won an Oscar. Then Hell's Angels in 1930 cost over $4 million, which was insane back then, the most expensive movie ever made. Also produced The Front Page, Scarface, big hits.
So movies first. But he's maybe more famous for aviation?
Right. And that's where he really took off during the Depression. He formed Hughes Aircraft Company in 1932.
In the middle of the downturn.
Yep. And became super profitable. He was obsessed with planes, speed. He'd convert military aircraft into racers, set records.
Like what?
Flew from L.A. to Newark in under 10 hours and 36. Circled the globe in a record 91 hours and 38. Kept himself and his company right in the spotlight. Daring, innovative. It worked, even then.
Okay, so we've gone through Kennedy, Getty, West, Spaulding, Cullen, Hughes. Pretty diverse group, different industries, different backgrounds. But if you had to sort of connect the dots for listeners, what are the common threads you see running through these stories?
Well, I think a few things really jump out. First, there's definitely vision and foresight, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Like Kennedy seeing the crash coming, or Getty seeing it as an opportunity, Cullen envisioning a whole new way to shop.
They saw things others didn't. They looked past the immediate crisis.
True. Though you wonder with Kennedy or Getty, how much was pure vision versus maybe having access to, capital or information others lacked?
That's a fair point. Capital certainly helped. But still, the willingness to act against the grain, against the panic, that takes something. Discipline, maybe. A long-term view.
Yeah, good point. What else?
Adaptability and innovation. That seems key.
Like Chrysler shifting to cheaper cars.
Right. Or Mae West providing exactly the kind of entertainment people wanted then. Cullen totally innovating retail. They weren't stuck in old ways.
They evolved with the times or even ahead of them. And I also noticed finding underserved markets.
Yes. Spaulding is the prime example, right? Serving the Black community with vital insurance when others weren't.
And Cullen, too, in a way, serving those cost-conscious shoppers who needed value.
They found the gaps. They found the unmet needs and went after them.
And maybe underlying all of it, just boldness, risk-taking.
I think so. Investing, expanding, trying something new when everyone else was pulling back, playing it safe.
Yeah, they weren't paralyzed by the fear that grips so many.
Exactly. It really shows that, well, it's kind of a paradox, isn't it? That even in the absolute worst economic times, there's still room for ingenuity, for strategy, for creating value and finding opportunity.
It's definitely a surprising twist on the usual narrative of the Great Depression. Stories of massive success, resilience, innovation, right in the middle of all that hardship.
It really makes you rethink things, doesn't it? About opportunity, about crisis.
Yeah, it does. So maybe the thought to leave everyone with is this. What does digging into these Depression-era success stories teach us about opportunity itself? Especially when things feel like they're falling apart. What was it about these individuals that let them see a path forward when so many others just saw dead ends? And, how could that perspective maybe help us think about the challenges we face today?
Some to chew on, for sure.